Hello, beautiful visionary. I can't wait to share this with you. So I've gone ahead and pre-recorded some of the teachings that we covered on our content hours, just to make sure that you got all the goodies. Because sometimes I stop recording just so that we can have some, kind of vulnerable conversations. And I always like to honor people and make sure that the space is really safe and that I'm not necessarily recording everything and putting it on the internet. So I want to make sure that you get all the goodies that were in the masterclass if you missed it. So welcome. Hi, how are you? Let's get started. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can hop into the goodies today. So I'm going to do this in a few different sections, and let's kind of start at the beginning. This is a gifted series for you. My true desire and hope is that it's very helpful for you in terms of helping you connect and calm down with sometimes the voices in our head that can kind of feel a little overwhelming sometimes. But then also I really want this to have practical application. I want this to actually help you create content, feel clear in your message, really take ownership of what you're actually here to do and how you're here to do it and the ways you want to show up in the world around that. So there's this one little quote I want to share. I know sometimes we can make our content or getting our language all organized and our ideas and maybe our programs and maybe our offers, we can overcomplicate it. We can make 26,000 steps when there's only a few. So I like to share this one. An intellectual says a simple thing in a hard way, and an artist says a hard thing in a very simple way. So whenever you aren't sure if you should simplify with your language and your messaging, the answer is always yes, please simplify. People like simple. Brains like simple. Brains like simple. All right. So please remember that you are the ultimate carrier, the steward of your mission, what you're here to do, how you're here to do it, who you're here to be while you do it, and how you're here to share it out in the world. You have an incredible gift inside of you, and you carry that, and it's really up to you. It's your responsibility to do all the work inside yourself and get your message out there in whatever capacity and way you want to. So you are the steward of your story, your worldview, your beliefs, your mission, your message. It's really up to you to show up and to share it. So that's what I help people do. That's one of the things that I help people do. The ultimate end result of working with me is that you are able to handle better and be in relationship with the voices in your head, because what stops us from doing anything or being anything or believing in anything or showing up the way we want is often a voice in our head. Sometimes we call them limiting beliefs. Sometimes we call them healing blocks. Sometimes we call them blocks. Sometimes we call it a saboteur, an inner critic, whatever language you use to describe that experience. At the end of the day, it's a voice in your head that's talking. And it can feel very difficult to handle that and feel clear at the same time. So I help you manage that and handle that in a way that works. And I know it works because I see it work all the time. Okay. So some of the stuff we're going to cover today is all around language. That's at the center of making sure that people get what you do, understand how your work is meant for them, and can see themselves resonate in your message. Because if people can't see themselves in your message, they're not going to be able to take that next step and get the gifts that you firmly believe would be helpful for them. So language has incredible capacity. And I've learned this many, many times over and over, but one thing stands out. I remember when I was in teacher's college, I was a teacher in my previous lifetime. And I had one of my mentors tell me, you can make or break a child's day just by the way that you speak to them when they first arrive, just by the words that you use. And how true is that? That the way you choose to communicate, the tone, everything about your language and your energy behind it has immense capacity. You can literally change somebody's day just by the way you shape a message and put it out there into the wilds of the interwebs. Equally so, language can also be used in an extremely harmful way. And one example is when we talk about First Nations and all the injustices and that have been happening over the hundreds of years. One thing that the government did was they attempted to erase culture by taking away the language. So making sure that children who were taken from their homes and put in residential school, language was one of the things that they took away. And the reason they did that was very intentional because language holds culture. Right? Language holds culture, it holds a worldview, it holds a lineage, it holds ancestry, it holds so much. So, just like language can have this amazing, beautiful capacity, just like everything, it has this duality. So, just to keep that in mind, that it carries this immense power. And the more that you can clarify your words and your message, the easier it is for people to see the value in it. So, it has incredible power. It also makes no sense. I want to share this. I just love being human because I'm human and I like just being human with you. This makes no sense that I'm sharing some of this content with you in one sense because I was never a good writer. It was terrible. Reading was difficult. I was slow to read. It took me a little bit longer to understand things like nouns and verbs, and all of that was very confusing for me. And so it doesn't make sense I'm doing this, and it does, because that is one facet of my experience, one facet of part of me. That is something that happened to me in the past, but it doesn't necessarily define how I see myself today. And so the same is true for you about any skill that you think or believe that in the past you weren't good at. Anything is a skill that you can build on. So I just want to encourage, if you don't see yourself as a powerful communicator, that can change. All right. How this is going to work, I'm going to give you some mini teachings because this is the replay. You won't necessarily have the focus writing blocks or but I'll put the guided prompts in this as well. And I can give you some feedback if you send me a message, if you send me an email, and you have specific questions, then I'm happy to pop it on the internet and give you some feedback. So if you've got questions, I've got your answers. Please ask. And yeah. So this was more for when we were having the actual session itself, but I just want to point out that if you are hosting any type of group container, even if it's for an hour or 6 months, it's really important that you take the time to create safety in the container, kind of these like rules of engagement, just so that everything's clear for everybody. All right, so let's hop to the mini teachings. I want to talk very briefly, but very intentionally, about what I call the 3Ds and some of the internal contracts, aka the voices in your head. So, one thing that's going to slow down or disrupt your creative flow are voices in your head, beliefs that come in, stories that are being shared, sensations, memories, all of those pieces. So, you're a human and you're going to have multiple parts existing in you at any given time. There's a part of you that wants to show up, there's a part of you that wants to hide, there's a part of you that feels confident, there's a part of you that doubts. So, we're always having these parts and they're going to get triggered when we show up. And I always say the fastest way to heal is to go for what you want in life. When you go for directly what you want, when you really start to choose yourself, it is inevitable that you will have incredible and long lasting healing, is to continue to go for what you want. And the best way to get results is to stay the course. So a lot of times we go for something, and when it gets hard, we give up. We come up with reasons to step away, to pause. Sometimes there's very good reason. There's actual real life stuff happening and it needs our attention and we need to pause. And so we make room for that, acknowledge that, and we still hold our vision and stay the course. All right. So these are the 3Ds that you are inevitably and probably can acknowledge are maybe happening for you right now. These are the three things that are going to come up for you in your creative process as a visionary, as a human, as a woman, as a writer, as all facets of you. There are going to be parts in you that doubt the process of life, that doubt how safe it is, that doubt that it's okay to express yourself, that doubt that you can take the filters off and actually be who you really are. There's this level of disbelief that that is okay to live that way. And we all have these parts in us. It boils down to the sensation or feeling or belief that as you are is not enough. It boils down to the sense of enoughness, this worthiness. I am not lovable, I'm not worthy, and I'm not good enough the way that I am. And so this is a very natural voice in the head to have. I want you to know that if you have this, it doesn't mean you can't go for what you want. So sometimes we think this is a limited belief or a block, and it can be helpful to name it. But the truth is that you can still have this in operation in your system and still be able to move forward and still go for what you want in a safe way. Okay, so I just want to assure you that doubt and disbelief does not have to block you from going for what you want and being who you're meant to be. There's a process for integrating it back into your system. Okay, but when we don't take the time to really get that deeper healing, we start to learn how to disconnect. We want to disconnect because it's hard to be in our body with the feelings that doubt and disbelief will bring up. The sensations of deep fear, of fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. So we start to learn how to disconnect. We may find ourselves opting to do things that maybe it's drinking, maybe it's taking a nap. That's one of my disconnections is like, oh, I'm going to go take a nap. But really, it's like we're just finding ways to hide out. When we start doing that enough, we start to learn how easy it is to get distracted. So when we start operating in disconnection more often than not, it's taking us away, it's distracting us from our intention. It's very simple. It's very simple. They all feed into one another. And the more we distract ourselves and the more we disconnect, the easier it is to feed that part of ourself that doubts and disbeliefs. It just continues to prove our not enoughness, continues to prove our unworthiness, continues to prove all these things that we think we have to be before we can feel enough or worthy. So I want to point out that that these operate all together. And that if you're seeing yourself in any of these, that's okay. It's okay. There's a process to making it easier. There's a process to healing some of those deeper wounded parts that think that they're not enough. And you can still have this in an operation, but we're looking to lessen its impact, right? Okay. Because, like I had mentioned, this is how it will show up in your life, in your vision, as you being the one holding your intention. You'll avoid it, you'll delay it, you'll find little ways to put off, either putting off getting your work out there, hitting post on that, taking the pivot that you want to take in your vision. You'll delay, you'll try to cut parts of yourself off, like you'll try to imagine you don't have an inner critic or you don't have an inner saboteur versus the process of healing and integrating them. That's something that we do. And you're going to show up, you'll probably beat yourself up along the way, make yourself wrong. In the end, you betray yourself. And it's very easy to think that the way you do things or the process you're going through in your creative flow isn't working. And so you're going to start to look outside of yourself, and maybe not all the time, but maybe we start subscribing to somebody else's system. We start looking at, oh, well, they've got like a plug and play, maybe I should do it that way. And that we forget our own process, our own system, our own intuition is actually the most powerful thing. That's what alignment is all about. And then sometimes we can actually have really good things happen and then forget that it's very magical to pause and celebrate all these amazing things we create, big, little, small, along the way. And so we can forget to celebrate. All of these 3Ds are fed by what are called internal contracts, stories in your head, conditions that you think or you've been taught or you've learned that you have to meet in order to be who you're meant to be, have what you want to have, and be able to do the things you want to do. So when it comes to your vision, when it comes to you showing up consistently and being seen in the work that you're here to do, there will be conditions that you think you have to meet to be able to do that, to be able to have the results you want to have, and to be even be the expert that you're here to be in the particular zone of genius that you have. So, what parts of you come up? What stories in your head come up in your creative process when it comes to your vision and sharing your message and just showing up? What are some of the things that you think, that parts of you think you have to be, or that you have to have, or that you have to be able to do? So pause here and just jot some of those down right now. Okay. So you've got some of these written down. I want you to keep these in mind as we go through and see which ones maybe you can shift a little belief around there. Maybe you can say, you know what, I think I'm just going to try not subscribing to that just for the next day. I'm going to just pause that. I'm just going to see what else I can also believe is true. So just keep those in mind. Anything that comes up around those scripts, by the way, when it comes to healing, that is exactly what you need to deepen into in terms of a healing process. Because what stops us from doing anything, being anything, believing anything is a voice in our head. So the more of those we can clear up and be in a different relationship with, the easier it will be. All right. So I'm going to talk about the creative cycle, and then I'm going to stop this video and start the next video, the next portion of the teaching. All right. So this is your creative cycle. This is your creative cycle. You will be fitting into one of these categories. I'm sharing this because everything in life has a process. Everything operates in a cyclical way. The sun, the moon, the stars, the way that a tree grows, the way that the seasons change, the way that if you're a woman and you bleed, the way that your cycle goes, everything comes in a cycle. Even the process of life itself, from the way we are coming here and we are born to the way that we leave this world and die. So everything has a process. That's true for your creative cycle as well. We are creative beings. You are a creative being. And so somewhere in here, you will find yourself. Every creative process, whether that's coming out with a new program or a launch, or even starting your business, if you're doing a business, anything that you're creating always begins with a desire. Always. Every goal that you want to hit, every outcome that you want to get to, every new reality you want to build for yourself begins with a desire, begins with an internal motivation to change and shift something about the way that you are with yourself, or that the way that the world is appearing to you at any given time. So you have a desire. You have a desire to know something, or you have a level of curiosity around creating something. So you're going to have a desire, and immediately this can be a feeling, it can be a sensation, it can be a voice in your head. I think you should create this. There's an influx of energy, there's an awakening toward the possibilities, and there's this level of organic motivation. You're motivated. You become motivated to move. Now, just because you're motivated doesn't mean you have doubt. Remember, there's going to be dualities, and there's going to be several voices and several parts of you operating at once. Okay. The nature of healing is to lean in and look toward the ones that don't feel so great in your system, and really start to listen, bear witness, and heal them. So with that said, you have this desire, this innate organic movement toward, and now what happens next is that you start to gather information, you start to gather ideas, you start to, this is where we get those downloads. If you get downloads, love those. You start to remember what you know. You start to get your ideas out there and kind of maybe dump them out on a piece of paper, or however you write it down. But you start to tune in to what you know. What do you already know? If you find this part kind of confusing, here's a structure you can use. What do you already know? How do you know? When do you know it? And why does it matter? Okay, why does it matter? So this is where you're gathering information. When you've taken the time to do that, by the way, you can stay in this area for a really long time if you want to. You could be gathering information your whole life, but at some point, you get to decide that everything I have is enough. You have to decide that, by the way. You have to intentionally say, I've got this and I'm moving forward. And then from there, you're going to move into distilling your ideas down. You're going to start nurturing this level of clarity in yourself. You're going to start distilling all these ideas into just categories or modules, or what I call big ideas. You're going to start to make sense of it and start to form it into some level of structure naturally. And now you can bring this gathering of ideas into something tangible, something that you can act on. So, for example, it may be putting a program together. It may be creating an offer. No matter how long that is or what's involved, you have something tangible that you can offer the world that the world can now invest in, participate in, experience. You have a tangible thing that you can put out in the world. And then from there, and by the way, in this area, once again, this is an area where you can stay in longer than you need to. This is also an area, excuse me, where you can talk yourself out of completion. It's not ready yet. It's not perfect. This isn't, sorry, my thing's going on. This isn't the right time. I've got too much going on. I'm not feeling it. I've got more inner work to do. Any of this sound familiar? It's all good if it does. But this is where you're going to really start to slow yourself down if you're not careful. So this is where getting regular support helps you move things along. I can't stress that enough. We could stay here forever. But once you start to activate it, now this is where you're putting yourself out there in the world. Also an important place to get support because it's going to tripwire a bunch of parts or voices like, who are we to do this? This isn't perfect. People aren't buying it. Nobody's responding. There's something wrong with me. This part is where we can start to make it mean something about us and who we are. Because it is you actually doing the thing. It's making the offer. It's putting your ideas out there into the world, into something tangible that people can buy. When it doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, it's very easy to make it mean something about who you are, what you're capable of, your enoughness, and we can start to see those 3Ds kicking in, where there's a level of doubt, and then we disconnect, and then we really start to distance ourselves from our intention. So this is a place where you getting support in this specific area of your cycle, in your creative cycle, is absolutely incredibly, I want to say necessary, but like that's really up to you. I've tried to do launches with no support, and I'm going to tell you it was much harder. Did I get it done? Yeah. But it came at a mental health cost as well. And I don't wish that on anyone. So, this is where getting help is really powerful. Okay. There is another section of this that I'm gonna stop here because this is really a lot of this is helping you to see the impact that the voices in your head will have, what some of those voices are. Um, I'd love to have a whole section on how to handle those voices and like a very specific process. That's my area of expertise. And I can tell you that it's a whole other teaching, and I'm happy to put that out. But this is where I really empower you to go to my page and go see some of my open source live, because I speak into this directly in some of my lives that help you navigate those voices in your head with a little bit more effort. I will give you one little tip, which is this. No part every part of you is here to help you. Every single voice in your head, every part of you. We have judgment sometimes. There's parts of us that come in and judge. There's parts of us that come in and make those parts wrong. That's like, this inner critic is not helpful, except that the inner critic is just often a very young you that's afraid. And so our job is to be in relationship with these voices in a very open and willing and non-judgmental way, which means rather than judging these voices or attempting to erase them, our only job is to stay open and get curious about what they think is really important. What are they trying to accomplish for us? What are they trying to save us from feeling? Okay, so I will leave you with that because I know that that's really helpful. All right, I will see you in the next block because we're going to be talking about structure and how to actually organize your ideas. It's going to be super helpful.